working here in Montgomery County to elect our fine slate of Democratic candidates and to elect George McGovern, the next President of the United States. Democrats work very hard for their party. We work for the party because we know that the party believes in us. We believe in the platform, we believe in our leaders, and they believe in us, the people. I'm very honored today to have the opportunity to introduce to you a man who is concerned for the people, a man whose ability to lead people has gained in Montgomery County and throughout the state of Ohio. This man has worked very hard in many local organizations that work to improve lives and enrich lives in Dayton.
Input? You don't need it.
You got a feed there?
Yeah.
We'll be on the one there.
You're wandering, okay. Is that what you're recording with? Come on down, we got a table for that.
Wait. I gotta.
President Abraham Lincoln, President John Kennedy.
Down, back. Let's go.
Let's go. Either back up on the stairs or down front. Let's go. Let's clear this area.
Institution of a great portion of our society. May I present to you a man who has the vision to recognize America's problems, the tenacity to seek the solution to America's problems, and the courage and leadership ability to wrest control of the destiny of our country from the special interest groups and return it to the American people. Fellow citizens, a man you can trust, the next President of the United States of America, Senator George S. McGovern. Senator McGovern.
Thank you very much, Chairman Tibbs, Representative McGee, and my Ohio friends. First of all, let me say how glad I am to be back in Dayton, Ohio today, and I especially appreciate this marvelous sign behind me that welcomed President McGovern to the city of Dayton. Wherever we go, we not only see wonderful crowds and wonderful signs, but we see every indication that on November 7th, we're going to retire Mr. Nixon to his palace at San Clemente. Now, I have to admit, once in a while we do see a Nixon sign that says 4 more years, but last Saturday we saw one that said McGovern and Shriver 8 more years. And I think the American people are going to be with us on November 7th because we're with the American people. Where do we find Mr. Nixon today? We find him hiding in the White House, sitting on top of his gallopole. He has not had the courage at any point in this campaign to appear at a single factory, on a single campus, in a single union hall, and he doesn't have the courage or the competence to face his opponent in public debate before the people of this country. I think he remembers what John Kennedy did to him in those last debates. But if he came out and faced the issues honestly, here are some of the questions that I would like to ask you. Mr. Nixon, did you know about the burglary of our Democratic National Headquarters at the Watergate? Did you know, Mr. Nixon, about the wiretapping of our phones? Did you know about the White House aide that wrote a letter slurring an ethnic group in this country and slandering the reputation of Senator Muskie? And if you didn't know about those things, Mr. Nixon, have you lost control of your campaign and your administration? And Mr. Nixon, why did you promote the man who gave ITT $1 billion out-of-court settlement? Why did you promote that man to Attorney General of the United States after $400,000 was contributed by ITT to the Republican National Convention? Why have you defended, Mr. Nixon, the Russian grain scandal instead of cleaning up the Department of Agriculture? Why are you against an independent, nonpartisan investigation of all of these scandals in your administration? And then another question that I would like to ask Mr. Nixon: why have you kept secret from the American people the names of the people who have now accumulated a secret fund estimated at $20 million for your re-election? 20 years ago, when Mr. Nixon accumulated a secret fund of $18,000, General Eisenhower said to him, "Come clean with the American people or get off the ticket." Now, unfortunately today, there is no General Eisenhower to make Mr. Nixon come clean or to tell us the truth about this $20 million secret fund. But I say to him, Mr. Nixon, come clean with the American people or get out of the White House. How dare these agents of Mr. Nixon and the President himself put the government on the auction block and the truth into a paper shredder? How dare they ask to lead the people for 4 more years when they are unwilling to face the people openly in this campaign in face-to-face public debates? Now, I know that it's drizzling here today, and we may get a little wet, but I have some important things I want to say, and it's more vital that we be willing to get a little wet today than we'd be burned for the next 4 years. I think it's important to defeat an administration whose top political operator, Chuck Colson, has said that he would walk over his grandmother in order to win an election. And they've already walked over the Constitution in order to do that. I want you to remember that kind of philosophy when you hear the distortions from Nixon spokesmen about our positions on national defense. There are distortions about where we stand on welfare, and there are distortions about virtually every position that we've taken in this campaign. I want you to remember how they misled the American people in 1968, 4 years ago, when they said they had a secret plan to end the war in Southeast Asia. Now, with just 2 weeks before the election on November 7th, they're telling us that they're going to end the war again. But why not 4 years ago? Why, Mr. Nixon? Was it necessary to kill another 20,000 young Americans in this war before we ended it? What did you gain by killing or wounding or driving out of their homes 6 million people, most of them in South Vietnam, by this incredible bombing that has gone on for the last 4 years? What did you get, Mr. Nixon, for the $60 billion you've spent in the last 4 years on the destruction of Southeast Asia that we needed to build up our own cities, to combat crime, to combat drugs, to combat pollution, to build up our own country instead of destroying the land and the villages of another country 10,000 miles from our shore? And I ask this question: what has changed that makes it any easier for us to get a peace settlement today than the one we could have had 4 years ago if we'd had a president committed to peace 4 years ago? Did you make all these sacrifices, Mr. Nixon, to save your own political face from right-wing criticism? Is Pete Hamill of the New York Post right when he asserts in yesterday's issue of his newspaper, and I quote, "All those people died for the committee to re-elect the president"? Now, I think we need a leadership that recognizes that there are some things in politics that are even more important than saving face or winning a victory, and one of those things is human life, and another thing is a respect for the truth. We need a leadership in this country today that listens to the people instead of wiretapping their telephones. And what are the people saying today? At the Democratic Convention, during the California Challenge, Willie Brown ended his speech with a stirring cry, "Give me back my delegation." This year, in the midst of scandals and the special deals and this endless war that has needlessly gone on for another 4 more years, the people are saying, "Give us back our government." This year, the people are saying, "Give us back the value of our dollar." Today, the dollar you saved 4 years ago is now worth only 82 cents. And the Nixon wartime inflation is ground into the price of every pound of hamburger you buy. I think there's something fundamentally wrong with a wage and price control policy that suppresses wages but lets prices and interest rates run wild. That's not fair. Inflation is now at a rate of over 6%, which is exactly what it was before Mr. Nixon's new economic controls were applied about 1.5 years ago. Why did that happen? It happened because 9/10 of all the applications for price increases were approved at the same time that the Wage Price Board was holding down the income of people who work for a living. In the next administration, we're going to listen to the people of this country. We will heed their demand for an attack against inflation, and we will operate an even-handed program that protects the income of working people and still protects the consumers of this country who have been gouged for the last 4 years in a needless wartime inflation. Now in 1972, the people are also saying, "Give us a fair break on taxes." And let me repeat here again this afternoon, there's something fundamentally wrong with a tax system that permits a corporation executive to deduct his $20 martini luncheon and you can't deduct the price of a bologna sandwich. The American people are also saying, give us back our jobs. And let's remember that 2 million people are out of work today who were working 4 years ago. We need a president who will do less sermonizing to the workers he is throwing out of work and instead will provide a decent job for every man and woman in this country who is able to work. Now, the Nixon administration says that full employment is a myth except in time of war. I don't believe that. I think if we will end this war and cut back on the waste and the theft in our military budget and begin investing that money in building housing, in building decent schools, in building public transit systems, in protecting our environment, in fighting crime and fighting hard drug addictions, building daycare centers, if we'll begin doing the things that we desperately need to build up America, we will not only have more jobs, but we will have the kind of self-fulfilling jobs that can come when you convert the wastes of war into the works of peace. And that's my commitment to the people of this country. Finally this year, the American people are saying, give us back our sons and our treasure from the jungles of Vietnam. They are saying we should not have waited another 4 years to end this war. But certainly, they're saying in the closing days of this campaign, it is long overdue to end the cruelest, the most wasteful, and the most unnecessary war in all American history. Mr. Nixon says there can be no peace without honor. I say there will be no honor and no rehabilitation of America until there is peace in Southeast Asia. Now let's face it, this election is not just a contest between George McGovern and Richard Nixon. Both of us will still be around no matter what happens on November 7th. But it's a fundamental struggle between the decent, ordinary people of this country and the selfish, short-sighted special interests of this country. It's a contest between people who want peace and the war makers who will not admit that they've been wrong in this tragic conflict. I think the time has come to recognize that we must answer the question deep in our hearts, deep in our souls about what kind of a country it is we want America to be. I think we want an open government and open politics. I think we want a leadership that builds our trust in them by beginning with a trust in us as the people of this country. I think you want to cherish this country, to take pride in what it does, to honor what it represents. Now it's true that we're behind in the polls. We will win. We will win because we've been out among the people, we've been listening to what they've said, and we've heard that cry, give us back our government. And we will win because it is still true with nations, as it is with people, that it is the truth that sets us free. Thank God for that. Thank God for each of you. Thank you very much.
your attention just a minute.
Let's cut it.
I'd like to introduce a classmate of mine, a friend of mine, the mayor of the city of Dayton, the Honorable James McGee, to make a presentation to Senator McGovern. Senator, on behalf of the citizens of the city of Dayton, to show what a warm place we have in our hearts for you, and I want to extend to you the key to our city.
Well, I appreciate ever so much the presentation of this key to the city. I want to say in response to those of you who've been crying, we want George, that even more importantly, I want you, and I need you on November 7th. I want to bring to the microphone two women who are traveling with us in this campaign, not to make a speech, but simply to take a bow. One of them is the wife of one of our prisoners of war who has been held a prisoner for many years, Mrs. Valerie Kushner. I'd like to call her here if she's here. Let's just hear a brief word from Mrs. Kushner. She was on the cover of Life magazine here about a month ago.
I want to say one thing. My husband was captured in November of 1967. When Richard Nixon was elected in 1968 with a pledge to end the war and bring us peace, my husband had spent almost a full year in a POW camp, and he's already had 4 more years. With your help and your support for George McGovern, Mr. Nixon has got just what that sign in the audience says, 2 more weeks.
That just shows how eloquent you can be when you're brief. Now, the other woman I would like to introduce is Mrs. Esther Peterson, who was the top advisor on consumer affairs for the Johnson administration. She's an expert on the problems of consumers who have taken such a beating under this Nixon administration, and I'd like to ask her to just greet this crowd for a moment. Mrs. Esther Peterson.
Great. And I tell you that I've been traveling around and I recognize that people know that, we can win this election at the meat counter the same as at the ballot box. Because that's what's happening. And just down in Mississippi I was, and I tell you the greatest thing, every place where you saw exit signs all over, those red signs that are picked up there, it says, Nixon must, and there's a sign, exit in 72. And we'll see that it's done.
Thanks ever so much, everyone. Now we got 2 weeks left to work. Everybody here, make a resolution that you're going to try to get at least 10 people to go to the polls and vote on Tuesday, but make sure that those 10 people know how to vote. That's all we ask from you. Thank you very much.
Don't leave your enthusiasm here. Let's go out and vote. Let's give your money. Vote early November the 7th and vote often. Thank you very much.
Real happy right now.
Oh, you know what? They bring this person.
trending in your favor.
No question about that at all. Everybody says that. I don't know one person who doesn't think that the trend is in our favor.
I think we'll have to cut it now, okay?